What if the myths we dismiss as fantasy were actually forgotten history? What if gods once walked the earth, not as divine abstractions, but as real, flesh and blood beings? And what if the key to understanding human origin lies not in religion or science alone, but in the echoes of an ancient cosmic truth? You've heard whispers of them before. The Anunnaki, beings said to have descended from the heavens long before recorded history. In ancient Sumerian tablets, the oldest written records known to man, these mysterious figures emerge as creators, rulers, and even architects of human civilization. But who, or what, were they? Were the Anunnaki simply symbols of natural forces, clothed in myth and metaphor? Or were they something far more literal, extraterrestrial intelligences whose presence shaped the course of human evolution? For centuries, this question has echoed through temples, tombs, and the silent void of space. Now, in a time where science fiction inches ever closer to science fact, more people are daring to ask, did ancient aliens visit Earth? And could they be the Anunnaki? Today, we journey into a realm where history blurs into mythology, where forbidden archaeology meets cosmic speculation, and where ancient secrets may still be waiting, buried in stone and silence. In this video, we will delve into the origins of the Anunnaki legends, tracing them back to the Sumerian cradle of civilization. We'll examine the cuneiform tablets that sparked an entire movement, and question whether these ancient stories were ever meant to be interpreted as mere metaphor. We'll explore the idea that what we've been calling gods may have been something else entirely. You'll hear the claims of researchers who believe the Anunnaki engineered early humanity, and the counterarguments from mainstream scholars who say it's all just mythology misread through modern eyes. But beyond the controversy lies something deeper, something timeless. Because whether real or imagined, the Anunnaki are more than just ancient lore. They represent the archetype of the descending gods, the keepers of forbidden knowledge, the catalysts for transformation. And perhaps most importantly, they remind us that history may not be as linear, or as certain, as we've been led to believe. So stay with me, because by the end of this journey, you may find yourself rethinking everything, from where we came from, to where we're going. The truth may not be what you expect, but it may be exactly what your soul has been seeking. Are the Anunnaki just ancient legends? Or are they the forgotten architects of a reality far stranger than we dare imagine? Let's begin. Beings said to have descended from the heavens long before recorded history. In ancient Sumerian tablets, the oldest written records known to man, these mysterious figures emerge as creators, rulers, and even architects of human civilization. But who, or what, were they, really? Were the Anunnaki simply symbols of natural forces, clothed in myth and metaphor? Or were they something far more literal, extraterrestrial intelligences whose presence shaped the course of human evolution? For centuries, this question has echoed through temples, tombs, and the silent void of space. Now, in a time where science fiction inches ever closer to science fact, more people are daring to ask, did ancient aliens visit Earth? And could they be the Anunnaki? Today, we journey into a realm where history blurs into mythology, where forbidden archaeology meets cosmic speculation, and where ancient secrets may still be waiting, buried in stone and silence. In this video, we will delve into the origins of the Anunnaki legends, tracing them back to the Sumerian cradle of civilization. We'll examine the cuneiform tablets that sparked an entire movement, and question whether these ancient stories were ever meant to be interpreted as mere metaphor. We'll explore the idea that what we've been calling gods may have been something else entirely. You'll hear the claims of researchers who believe the Anunnaki engineered early humanity, and the counterarguments from mainstream scholars who say it's all just mythology misread through modern eyes. But beyond the controversy lies something deeper, something timeless. Because whether real or imagined, the Anunnaki are more than just ancient lore. They represent the archetype of the descending gods, the keepers of forbidden knowledge, the catalysts for transformation. And perhaps most importantly, they remind us that history may not be as linear, or as certain, as we've been led to believe. So stay with me, because by the end of this journey, you may find yourself rethinking everything, from where we came from, to where we're going. The truth may not be what you expect, but it may be exactly what your soul has been seeking. Are the Anunnaki just ancient legends? Or are they the forgotten architects of a reality far stranger than we dare imagine? Let's begin. To understand the mystery of the Anunnaki, we must first journey back, far back, into the cradle of civilization, ancient Sumer. Over 5,000 years ago, long before Greece or Rome, before even the pyramids of Egypt, there was Sumer, a thriving civilization in Mesopotamia, modern-day Iraq. Here, etched into clay tablets in an intricate script called cuneiform, the first written language emerged. And among these ancient texts, the name Anunnaki appears. In Sumerian mythology, the Anunnaki were powerful deities descended from the sky god Anu. Their name means those who came from heaven to earth. According to the tablets, they ruled over the earth, judged the fates of humans, and played key roles in shaping the destiny of kings and empires. At first glance, it's easy to interpret these figures as standard mythological archetypes, gods and goddesses like those found in countless ancient cultures. But there's something different about the Anunnaki. Their stories are unusually detailed, strangely technical, and often disturbingly literal. Some texts describe specific tasks the Anunnaki performed, like overseeing mining operations, building great structures, or even creating humanity itself. The ancient epic known as the Atrahasis tells of how early humans were fashioned from clay and the blood of a rebellious god, engineered, it seems, to serve the Anunnaki as workers. Not a symbolic birth, but a constructed one. A genetic experiment. It is from this narrative that modern theorists like Zecharia Sitchin drew revolutionary conclusions. In his controversial interpretations of Sumerian texts, Sitchin proposed that the Anunnaki were not gods, but advanced beings from a distant planet called Nibiru. They arrived on Earth in search of gold, needed, according to his theory, to repair their home world's atmosphere. To mine this gold more efficiently, they genetically modified primitive hominids, creating the first humans. Mainstream scholars rejected these ideas. They argued that Sitchin's translations were flawed, and his conclusions speculative at best. To them, the Anunnaki were symbolic, not literal. Their myths were metaphor, not memory. But here's the deeper question: why do so many ancient cultures describe similar events? Sky beings descending from the heavens. Civilization granted suddenly by gods. Humans created or elevated by powerful, otherworldly forces. From the Nephilim of the Hebrew Bible to the Viracochas of the Andes, the theme repeats. Different names, different tongues. Same essence. Could it be that the Sumerians were not inventing mythology, but preserving memory? Let's not forget, the line between history and myth was once fluid. For ancient peoples, stories were not fiction. They were containers of truth, passed down in symbolic form, encrypted in allegory, guarded in ritual. And perhaps, just perhaps, those stories were trying to tell us something. Something we, in our modern arrogance, have dismissed as fantasy. Now, from a philosophical perspective, the Anunnaki mythos touches something far more profound than alien speculation. It speaks to a recurring archetype in human consciousness, the descent of knowledge. The divine teacher. The intermediary between heaven and earth. This motif, of beings descending to enlighten or enslave humanity, exists in every ancient system. Prometheus, who gave fire to man. Quetzalcoatl, who taught the arts of civilization. Enoch, who walked with the angels. In Jungian psychology, these are not merely stories, they are symbols of transformation. Of the moment when humanity awakens to itself. When chaos becomes order. When the beast becomes man. So whether the Anunnaki were ancient astronauts or mythic reflections of inner awakening, their presence in our collective memory is no accident. They are mirrors, revealing both our origins and our potential. Because the deeper truth may not lie in whether they existed in the way we understand physical beings. The real question is why the human psyche, across time and culture, keeps reaching for the stars in search of its beginning. What are we trying to remember? And why have we forgotten? In the next section, we'll dive into the most fascinating, and controversial, interpretations of the Anunnaki's role in human history. Theories that challenge everything we think we know about evolution, religion, and the true origins of civilization. Get ready. Because the mystery is only just beginning. Imagine, for a moment, that the stories were true. Not allegories. Not symbolic metaphors. But real accounts, fragmented memories encoded in myth. What would that mean for human history? This is where the Anunnaki legend begins to fracture the boundaries between archaeology, theology, and forbidden history. The theory that has captivated millions goes something like this. Thousands of years ago, Earth was visited by an advanced extraterrestrial race, beings of immense knowledge and technology, referred to by the ancient Sumerians as the Anunnaki. They descended from the sky not as ethereal spirits, but as physical entities. They arrived with purpose, seeking something vital, gold. Not merely for wealth, but for survival. According to the controversial translations of ancient texts by Zechariah Sitchin, these visitors hailed from a distant planet called Nibiru, a celestial body with a long elliptical orbit, one that brings it close to Earth every 3,600 years. The atmosphere of Nibiru, so the story goes, was deteriorating. The Anunnaki needed gold, one of the most malleable and non-corrosive metals, to stabilize it. And Earth, rich in this precious resource, became the target. But here's the twist: mining Earth's gold proved to be labor-intensive and dangerous. The Anunnaki, unwilling to risk their own kind, turned to a radical solution. They would create a worker species. According to the Atrahasis epic, Enki, an Anunnaki leader and master geneticist, proposed the merging of their DNA with that of primitive hominids on Earth. The result? Homo sapiens. Not just an evolutionary accident, but a hybrid. Part Earthling, part Anunnaki. In this telling, the creation of man wasn't a divine miracle or a random mutation. It was an engineered event. And the Garden of Eden? A memory of an Anunnaki outpost, perhaps a controlled zone, a testing ground, a genetic lab. The forbidden fruit? Knowledge. Self-awareness. The awakening of consciousness in a creature not meant to rise so high. Mainstream scholars call this pseudoscience. They argue there is no concrete evidence of such intervention. But the counterargument is chilling. What if the evidence is everywhere, hiding in plain sight? Consider the sudden emergence of Sumerian civilization. Overnight, humanity developed writing, agriculture, mathematics, astronomy, legal systems, and monumental architecture. No gradual development. No slow climb. Just an explosion of advanced knowledge. It's as if someone pressed fast forward on our evolution. Or look at the genetic anomalies in the human genome. Why do humans have such a large neocortex compared to other primates? Why is our DNA filled with junk sequences, fragments that seem out of place, inserted? And why does nearly every ancient culture tell of sky gods who descended to Earth and gave mankind knowledge? We find them in Egypt, in the form of Thoth and Osiris. In India, as the Devas and Vimanas. In South America, as Viracocha. In Africa, the Dogon tribe speaks of the Nomo, amphibious beings from the star system Sirius who taught them cosmology with uncanny precision. These aren't isolated myths. They are echoes. And the echoes point to something deeper. A shared origin story, refracted through different languages and landscapes. Now, let's pause and ask, what does all this mean? If we entertain the Anunnaki theory, then the implications are staggering. Humanity may not be the crown of creation, but the product of intervention. Our myths are not fantasies, but fragmented records. And the gods of old? Not divine beings, but interstellar architects. But we must tread carefully here. Because this is not just about history, this is about identity. If we are hybrid beings, created by something else, who are we really? What is the soul? Where do consciousness and spirit come into play? Some say the Anunnaki, in giving us intellect, gave us something they couldn't control. Consciousness. The ability to question. To rebel. Is this why the myths speak of a fall? A loss of paradise? Was it not punishment from God, but the cost of freedom? And did the Anunnaki, realizing what they had created, withdraw, leaving us to evolve, or self-destruct, on our own? This brings us to a deeper layer of the mystery. What if the Anunnaki are not gone at all? What if they watch from afar? Or return in cycles? Or perhaps never left? And most disturbingly, what if the ones we call gods are not all benevolent? Some researchers suggest that ancient texts hint at conflicts between the Anunnaki themselves. Enki, the benefactor of humanity, opposed Enlil, the strict overseer who saw humans as disposable. These weren't divine beings beyond emotion. They were rivals. With agendas. With hierarchies. With power struggles. The wars of gods may have been wars of worlds. As we peel back these layers, one thing becomes clear. The Anunnaki myth is not a closed case. It is a living question, one that challenges everything we know about our past. In part 2 of the core explanation, we'll dive even deeper, exploring the spiritual dimensions, ancient warnings, and hidden clues in modern times that may reveal what the Anunnaki truly were, and what they might still be. Are you ready to go further? So far, we've explored the possibility that the Anunnaki were more than myth, perhaps architects of our species, interstellar visitors whose fingerprints are etched across our earliest civilizations. But what if this story goes even deeper? Beyond the physical, into the spiritual. Let's return to the ancient Sumerian texts, not just as historical documents, but as esoteric maps. Because hidden between the lines lies a whisper of something more profound. Something that shifts the narrative from aliens to archetypes. From technology to transcendence. What if the Anunnaki weren't merely visitors from the stars, but also guardians, or gatekeepers, of consciousness? In esoteric traditions across the world, there is a recurring theme, that humanity, in a distant past, had access to higher realms of perception. That we once walked with the gods, not in metaphor, but in multidimensional reality. Some believe that the Anunnaki, or beings like them, came not just from the stars, but from higher vibrational planes of existence. To ancient initiates, the gods were not simply physical, they were energetic, luminous, multi-layered. Could it be that the Anunnaki weren't just engineers of DNA, but architects of consciousness? Did they embed within us not only genetic code, but spiritual potential? The Sumerians spoke of the me, divine decrees, cosmic blueprints encoded in sacred tablets. These were not merely laws, but frequencies, patterns of universal order. And guess who held the me? Enki. The very being said to have designed humanity. Now think about this. Many spiritual systems believe the soul incarnates repeatedly, evolving through experience. The Bardo Totol, the Emerald Tablet, the Egyptian Book of the Dead, all speak of a journey through dimensions after death. Could the Anunnaki myths be part of the same lineage? Could they represent not just external beings, but internal forces? Carl Jung, the great psychologist, once said, "When gods are not recognized externally, they return as archetypes in the psyche." In this light, Enlil and Enki are not only characters in a cosmic drama, but symbols of opposing forces within us, the rational and the intuitive, the controlling and the creative. The gods warring in the heavens might be mirrored by the conflicts within our own minds. This leads to a revolutionary idea. That the Anunnaki myth is not just a literal account of extraterrestrial visitation, but a mystical allegory for the awakening of human consciousness. Let's explore a different thread. Some believe that humanity once operated in a higher state of awareness, what esoteric schools call the Golden Age or Satya Yuga. Over time, we fell into density, forgetting our divine nature. The intervention of the Anunnaki, then, could be seen as both a gift and a curse. A gift, because it jump-started civilization. A curse, because it entangled us in materialism, ego, and the illusion of separation. Remember the myth of Prometheus, who stole fire from the gods and gave it to man. What if that fire was not just knowledge, but awareness? And what if that awareness was both liberating and dangerous? Now, step into the present moment. Why does the story of the Anunnaki still captivate millions today? Why, in an age of science and space telescopes, do we feel the pull of ancient astronauts? Because something within us remembers. Perhaps the Anunnaki aren't just figures of the past. Perhaps they are echoes in our DNA. Seeds planted in the soil of our psyche, waiting to awaken. And here's where it gets even more intriguing. Modern whistleblowers, former government insiders, military personnel, and researchers have claimed that the elite of today still revere the Anunnaki. That rituals, symbols, and secret knowledge passed down through ancient priesthoods still shape our world in hidden ways. We find their symbols in plain sight. Winged discs, pine cones, double helixes, serpents, all tracing back to Mesopotamian iconography. And what is the pine cone, but a symbol of the pineal gland, the seat of spiritual vision? Did the Anunnaki give us the gift of awakening, and then veil it with illusion? Some say they created systems of control, time, hierarchy, religion, law. Others say they taught us sacred sciences, astronomy, alchemy, healing arts. So which is it? The answer may lie in how we choose to perceive. Because if the Anunnaki were real, perhaps they were not a single race, but a collective of beings, some benevolent, others manipulative. Some wanting to uplift us, others to control. And maybe that's the deeper truth behind every ancient myth. That duality exists in all things. light and shadow, knowledge and deception, ascension and fall. In this sense, the Anunnaki narrative becomes more than history. It becomes a mirror, reflecting our own journey as a species. Will we rise, awaken, and reclaim the divine potential encoded within us? Or will we remain asleep, repeating the cycles of control and forgetfulness? The choice was always ours. As we now move toward the final part of this journey, we will leave behind theory and myth, and step into transformation. How can these ancient ideas actually impact our daily lives? What can the story of the Anunnaki teach us about consciousness, purpose, and awakening today? And most importantly, how can we prepare ourselves to remember who we truly are? If the Anunnaki were real, whether as gods, beings from the stars, or archetypal forces, then their presence in ancient texts was never just to narrate history. It was to awaken something. Because at its core, the myth of the Anunnaki is not about domination. It's about transmission, a transmission of power, of memory, of origin. For thousands of years, humanity has stared up at the stars, not just in search of life, but in search of meaning. Where did we come from? Why are we here? Are we alone? And perhaps most haunting of all, did someone put us here? And why? The Anunnaki myth dares to answer those questions, boldly and unflinchingly. It presents a world in which we are not the pinnacle of evolution, but the result of an experiment. A hybrid race, birthed from divine will and biological design. Created with purpose. Yet left to wander in amnesia. But what if the real story isn't about being created to serve gods, but about inheriting the potential to become them? This is where myth and metaphysics converge. Because across nearly every spiritual tradition, from the Sumerians to the Gnostics, from the Vedas to Hermeticism, there is a recurring theme. That humanity contains within itself a spark of the divine. And the true fall, the real exile, was not from a garden, or from grace. It was from remembrance. The Anunnaki may symbolize a forgotten chapter of history. But they also represent the threshold of awakening, a gate between what we think we are, and what we could become. If we look past the literal interpretations, past the flying crafts, the genetic experiments, the gold mining operations, we arrive at something deeper. A mirror. The Anunnaki story reflects something buried in our collective psyche. A longing to understand our own power. A hunger to remember our origin. A calling to transcend the boundaries of the flesh, and step into the cosmic role we were meant to play. We are not simply products of evolution or the accidents of stardust. We are consciousness wrapped in matter, seeking to remember itself. And perhaps that's what the ancient Sumerians knew. That behind every deity carved in stone was not just a ruler to worship, but a symbol to embody. In this light, Enki, the wise god of the deep, becomes more than a genetic scientist. He is the guardian of inner knowledge, the one who whispers to the soul in dreams. Inanna, the Queen of Heaven, is more than a celestial warrior. She is the divine feminine, the initiator, the one who descends into the underworld of the self and returns crowned in wisdom. These beings may have walked the earth, Or they may have walked through the dreamscapes of humanity's early mind, symbols alive with meaning. In both cases, the message remains. There is more to us than we have been told. We live in an age of forgetting, an age where myth is dismissed, mystery is mocked, and memory is digital, not divine. But the Anunnaki story refuses to be forgotten. It survives not just in clay tablets, but in whispers, in intuition, in dreams that feel older than time. And maybe that's because it isn't a story at all. Maybe it's a seed. A seed planted millennia ago, waiting for the right consciousness to awaken. To remember. To reactivate. We must ask ourselves, why now? Why, in this moment of human history, does the myth rise again? Why are people across the world suddenly drawn to these ancient names, these forgotten symbols? Because we are standing at a crossroads. A time when science begins to echo spirituality. When quantum theory speaks of entanglement and non-locality, ideas mystics have whispered for centuries. And when ancient texts, once seen as primitive myth, begin to align with cutting-edge revelations about DNA, consciousness, and multidimensional reality. Could it be that we are re-entering the cycle the Anunnaki once initiated? Could it be that their return is not physical, but vibrational? Not through ships in the sky, but through a shift in perception? What we choose to believe about the Anunnaki matters less than what it does to us. Does it awaken fear? Or curiosity? Does it create division? Or expand wonder? Does it reduce us to lab experiments? Or remind us we are part of something infinite? The choice, as always, is ours. Because whether myth or memory, truth or metaphor, the Anunnaki live on. In our questions. In our search. In the stars. And perhaps, in us. So, were the Anunnaki real? Were they flesh and blood beings who descended from the stars, engineers of life, architects of civilizations, watchers of our evolution? Or were they symbols? Living archetypes embedded in the dreamtime of humanity, mythical reflections of our inner gods, our cosmic potential, our forgotten power? The truth is, no one can say with certainty. And maybe that's the point. Because the true power of myth is not in proving it true or false. It's in what it awakens within us. It's in the questions that refuse to die. Why do so many ancient cultures speak of sky beings? Why do their stories mirror one another across oceans and centuries? Why do so many of us feel like we've forgotten something important? Maybe the Anunnaki aren't just part of our past. Maybe they're part of our memory, our spiritual DNA. A buried signal pulsing through time, reactivating now, in this moment, as more and more people begin to question everything they've been told. History, religion, identity, destiny. We're beginning to remember. Not just who we are, but what we are. And in that remembering, myths like the Anunnaki return, not as bedtime stories for the curious, but as keys. Keys to unlock deeper truths about our place in the cosmos. Because when we stop dismissing myths, when we stop treating ancient texts as primitive ramblings, when we listen, not with skepticism, but with reverent curiosity, something happens. The mystery comes alive. And so, we return to the original question. Are the Anunnaki myths real? Or just ancient legends? The answer is not simple. It's layered, elusive, shimmering just beyond the veil of what we think we know. But what's undeniable is this. Their story still speaks. Still stirs something in the soul. Still challenges us to look deeper, at the stars, at the past, at ourselves. And maybe, just maybe, that's the mark of something real. Not real like stone and soil. Real like mythos and meaning. Real like a whisper from the edge of eternity. Now the question becomes, what do you believe? Do you see the Anunnaki as gods? Aliens? Archetypes? Or something else entirely? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's explore this mystery together, because the journey doesn't end here. In fact, it's just beginning. If this video stirred something in you, some ancient memory, some hidden wonder, then you won't want to miss what's coming next. Our next video dives even deeper into the forbidden history of the ancient world. And the secrets hidden in plain sight. So subscribe, turn on the bell, and join the growing tribe of seekers who know. There's more to this world than we've been told. Until next time, keep questioning. Keep remembering. And never stop seeking.